Alright guys, we're finally driving the Tesla Model Y here on Malaysian roads. This is perhaps one of the most hyped up electric vehicles to be launched in Malaysia this year, even more so than the BYD Dolphin, which is the most affordable one. But then again, this is also fairly affordable, starting price from 199,000 ringgit, which is absolutely amazing. It simply blows the socks off pretty much everything else in the market between 300 to 500,000 ringgit. So this is our first taste of driving the Tesla Model Y here on Malaysian roads. And well, first disclaimer, we usually do our test drives for over a week or at least an entire weekend, but this time we're getting it for about 3 to 4 hours. But you know what? First impressions matter the most, so yeah, let's go. So let's start with the looks first. The Tesla Model Y isn't exactly a brand new model. It's brand new to the Malaysian market for sure, but the design is quite a few years old. And for the most part, it looks like a ballooned up Tesla Model 3, and that's even older still. With the facelifted Model 3 expected to be launched towards the end of this year or perhaps the start of next year, you will soon see the next evolution of Tesla's design language. So perhaps when that comes out, the Model Y will look slightly aged here and there. You can definitely see the progress that Tesla has made with the Tesla Model S when it first came out. That looked amazing back then, but through the years, through the few facelifts, if you look at the old version, it starts to look a little bit aged. Perhaps the same fate will fall on the Model Y as well, but in the here and now, I think it looks properly modern, not quite the most proportional shape, especially on the side. It looks a little bit, like I said, bloated version of the Model 3, but it's still a handsome looking car and definitely a unique one. At the front, the lack of a big open grille, because this is an EV, it doesn't need big radiators to cool down the engine and so on. It certainly has a very distinctive, very EV front face. Down to the side, this being the absolute base model, the rear wheel drive standard range, it has the 19-inch Gemini wheels, but having seen it in person, the 19s don't look too bad. It certainly looks big enough for a car as big as the Model Y. For sure the 20s or 21s will look even better, but to me the 19s look fine. It's not too small, it's not undersized at all. The tires on this car are Hankook's and they are Tesla specific T1 tires. These are also EV specific tires with the additional foam inside it as well. So as you can hear, I'm driving around at 80 kilometers per hour and there's hardly any road noise as we drive along. There's a hint of it right in the background, but compared to most other EVs, this is one of the better ones. Tesla has also added on double glazing windows on all the cars, so yeah, refinement is definitely on the good side. Now let's talk about performance. This, like I said, is the standard range rear wheel drive version, so it's technically the slowest Model Y around. Now Tesla isn't a conventional car maker that claims HP, PS and M and so on. If anything, Tesla prides itself as being a tech company rather than a car company. So it gives figures and values that actually has meaning to the customers. So instead of giving power output figures like 1000 PS, 400 PS, 500 Newton meters or whatever, it gives the 0 to 100 times only. In this case, it gets from 0 to 100 in 6.8 seconds, which is plenty fast enough. But of course, by Tesla's usual high standards, or even most other EVs out there, this is, well, I wouldn't say it's slow, it's definitely one of the slower EVs around. 6.8 seconds is faster than most ICE cars around, but EVs are just, on a whole different level. If you care a lot about performance, you are much better off with the all-wheel drive long range, which gets from 0 to 100 in just 5 seconds. Or, if you're a bit of a performance nerd, the performance version under 4 seconds, that's the one you want. It's the same with range as well. Tesla doesn't give you, the battery size, kilowatt hours, and so on. It just gives you what means the most to you, which is the actual range. The standard range that we are in is claimed to do 455 kilometers on a single charge, and that is on the WLTP test cycle. Now, WLTP is different depending on the country that you are in, so it might not match the claim figures in other markets such as Europe and definitely not the US. But in any case, 455 kilometers for the standard range version is definitely impressive. It's already comparable to a lot of other EV makers with much larger batteries. Now remember, I said Tesla doesn't have any exact claims for the battery size, but by the powers of the internet, we can pretty much know that this car coming out of Giga Shanghai, it has about 60 kilowatt hour battery pack. And that is quite a fair bit smaller than most of its competitors. The Hyundai Ioniq 5, for instance, has a 74 kilowatt hour battery, and it's only claimed to do about 440 kilometers. So this, despite having a smaller battery, has an even longer range, which is definitely very impressive. So driving this car from Sunway Pyramid up to Putrajaya, although the roads were fairly clear and I was driving well within the speed limits, the car averaged between 13 to 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is definitely very efficient. Through similar roads, most other EVs would hover between 15 to 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So yeah, Tesla's got an advantage in terms of its energy consumption as well. That's definitely something that is impressive when it comes to the efficiency of this Tesla Model Y. So if you do a bit of math, take the 60 kilowatt hour battery pack, divide by 13.5 or 14, you'd get just about what Tesla claims, which is 450 kilometers. So yeah, this is not the case of quite a few other car brands that claim to do 400 when they can only do 300, or 500 when they can only do 400. Tesla's claims are pretty much bang on. Of course, it depends on how you drive the car. If you drive it very aggressively with on-off switch for the throttle pedal, you will get far less range. But if you drive it sensibly enough, you should be able to match the claimed range, no problems at all. Now, let's talk about the ride quality for this car. This isn't my first time driving a Tesla Model Y, but this version, for some reason, is far more comfortable than the previous ones that I've driven. It's not quite as comfortable as the more comfort-oriented rivals like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the EV6, and even the Mercedes-Benz EQA. But there is quite a bit of give with the suspension over here. It doesn't quite ride as harshly or as skateboardy as the previous Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys that I've driven before. That's definitely a big improvement right there. It can definitely be improved even further still, especially with the inclusion of adaptive dampers or perhaps air suspension. Right now it's all passive suspension all around, so even then it's not too bad. It could be better, but it's not bad either. For handling, well, I've only driven this car for about an hour, even that's a stretch, but for a quick first impressions, the steering is somewhat overly sharp. It definitely feels like it's coming off a sports car, low-slung, darty sports car rather than a big family-oriented crossover like this. So in that sense, there's a bit of a mismatch in the way this car feels to drive and what it actually is, but I think most customers, most owners won't really mind this as much. What they will appreciate for sure, however, is the fantastic visibility in this car. This being a crossover, you do sit fairly high, much higher than say a Model 3 for instance, but because the dashboard is also unconventional, everything is just set so low, you feel like you're perched up in the car and you get fantastic view out. This definitely has more of an SUV crossover driving position compared to most of its rivals. Most other EVs just feel like a tall hatchback. This gives you a very commanding view out, makes it very easy to place the car when you're maneuvering around town and so on. But having said that, it's not quite perfect because Tesla insists on having no instrument cluster at all. Pretty much everything is embedded within this big 15-inch center screen over here, including your speedometer, including a big center display that shows even your blind spot monitors and so on. So it does force you to move your eyes towards down here instead of just looking forward within your field of view. I think a HUD, a head-up display, would be a fantastic addition for the eventual facelift of the Model Y. For now, this is something that you will eventually get used to, of course, but for quick first impressions, yeah, I don't like it at all. But of course, it's going to be difficult for anyone, especially an automotive journalist, to review a Tesla properly, because Tesla fans are, shall we say, a little bit unique, a little bit fanatical in that sense. I think everything bad I say about Teslas, they'll just say that is the way forward. I'm just stuck in the old ways and I don't appreciate the good things that Tesla is doing. But fine, that's fair enough. I'm still entitled to my own opinions, I'd say. So yeah, for now I'm not a big fan of the lack of an instrument cluster for the driver, or at least a HUD. This to me takes a lot of getting used to. I think if I've driven this car for a week, maybe a month, I'll probably don't think it's such a bad thing. For first impressions, it definitely feels a little bit more dangerous than it needs to be. I need to move my eyes away from where I should be looking down here, even for the most basic information such as your speed. But yeah, like I said, you will get used to it. Another thing that takes a lot of getting used to is the Autopilot system on this car. All you have to do is, on a highway, just pull the gear lever down twice in quick succession and the car will take over. Now, Autopilot on a Tesla is just a fancy way of saying level 2 semi-autonomous driving, but it does feel quite a bit more autonomous than in most other cars. The steering wheel, you can just let go of it and it will drive itself for the most part. Especially on the highway, it pretty much drives itself 100% of the time, and that is for sure more advanced than in most other car brands, including the premium ones like Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audis, and so on. One thing that a lot of people get mistaken is that Autopilot is actually standard on the Malaysian Model Y. What you'd have to pay extra for 16,000 ringgit is the enhanced Autopilot features, and that includes things like automatic lane change and advanced summon and so on. But the basic Autopilot, which is your full-on level 2 semi-autonomous driving, including active lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, that is all there as standard. What I mean is the 199,000 ringgit that you pay for this car, the basic version, is pretty much very well spec'd. Like in pretty much most other cars, if you buy the basic spec, you get a bit of a kosong spec car, but not with the Tesla. It's like buying an Apple product or an iPhone. Even if you buy the basic version, the standards are very, very high. But unlike buying an Apple product, which is usually more expensive than most of its competitors, the Tesla is the other way around. This, like I said, is far more affordable than pretty much most of its competitors by a large margin as well. Just taking Mercedes-Benz for instance, the EQA, which is the smallest electric car in its range, which is far smaller than this car, is priced at almost 300,000 ringgit, whereas the Tesla Model Y, you can get it under 200,000. The price difference is just massive. It's the same whether you're looking at BMWs or even non-premium car makers like Hyundai, Kia, and so on. Tesla has a massive price advantage here in Malaysia. And in fact, Malaysia is now one of the cheapest places to buy the Tesla Model Y compared to most other markets out there. So yeah, this is something that you should take advantage of right now. So that's it for a quick first impressions of the Tesla Model Y. I've got plenty more to say, trust me, especially with the way everything is embedded within the big center screen over here. But that will have to wait for, when I get the car for a longer period of time, hopefully a weekend, hopefully a week. By then I'll give you my full in-depth review of the Model Y. For now, let me know what you think of this car. Do you agree? Do you disagree with whatever I've said? Do let me know in the comment section below. For now, thank you for watching and stay safe, everyone.